one thing to kind of yap about is, as always, I kind of get these topics from social media, from threads, etc. And this came up basically just today. So, first of all, let's see. All right. So, this came up just today. And this was being passed around as so there's a topic I see sometimes about there's arguments that says don't raid, raiding is bad, etc. And this was just the latest of that kind of bizarre thing that I've seen. And this is being passed around to say that, big raids hurt the receiver. And it's actually, first of all, not what it says. There's a facts over feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings kind of thing. But first of all, it's not even really what it says. It doesn't say that raids hurt the receiver. What it says is existing commenters tend to engage less after the increases of group size, which I could see that. I could see that. You when you feel like you're not being seen as much, you're especially when there's a flood of people going, "Hey, raid, hello, hi," which is actually something they measure. I actually read a bit of their, not, I don't have the entire study, but I did read their supplemental material, and I'll talk about a few things from that I found amusing. But this is something I can see. If you've ever hopped into a large streamer's chat, it's hard to be seen, so you're not going to be, you can't really engage in conversation. You can't be noticed. So that will happen when the viewer size increases dramatically. It's harder to be seen. But then they also say the negative engagement effect is the product of mediation effects by the increased topic and coherence and emotional polarity of comment that decreases engagement. So they're actually arguing that after the raid, overall engagement decreases because they say people are confused. And that's going to be curbed, negativity can be curbed with moderators, but they still say it's an overall negativity. And this is a little bit strange to me. Like, it's understandable that in a larger chat bubble, it's harder to be seen, so you're not really engaging in conversation. So the people who used to engage in conversation, not so much. It's hard to be seen in a heavy chat with a lot of people. Like if you've ever been in a chat with 400, 600, 800 viewers, it's harder to be seen compared to, when you're visiting smaller streamers and it's a lot more intimate. So that makes a bit of sense. But then this is used to make an argument that raids are actually harmful, and that's kind of bizarre to me. Now, they do say here, now that's beyond the point. That's just kind of a little bit of a personal feeling of it. But first, let's talk about the facts over feelings before we really dive into the viewpoint, opinion aspect of this. So there's three kinds of statistics. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right? You can if you have a conclusion, you can tailor the data to get you the conclusion that you want. And so one thing I was in particular looking at this is what's their data set, because they will sometimes say things here that don't jive with things I've seen. Like I have directly seen large raids benefit people, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But they say they've analyzed panel data constructed with chat histories of 7,000 playbacks. So they've had playbacks of raids on Twitch. 7,000 sounds like a lot, and it is. It's enough of a data set to analyze. However, the question is, where does it come from? Where's this data set coming from? And that's where the supplemental material, that's what this is. And I've got this on Appendix 3 because I want to talk about something over here in particular. But my main criticism, the thing that I'm looking for, is where's the data coming from? Because I'm not questioning the methods, like all the math and stuff. And I have an engineering background, so I've done things along these lines. Like this gets to heavy statistics, which was never my strongest suit. But I have a math background, a complex math background. So if I wanted to, I could look into this in detail and try to understand it. But I don't really care to do that. It doesn't really matter here. Because you could have all this amazing complex calculations, but if your data set's crap, it's crap input, crap output kind of thing. Like this equation is trying to normalize, the data they see, but if the data is crap, it doesn't matter. And um, elsewhere, they say they specifically looked at 120 specific channels. So I can't see which channels they selected. That may be in the more detailed analysis that I don't have access to. But they do publish this, and uh, there's 120 specific channels. And they look at a couple of factors. They look at just chatting streams versus a gaming stream. And they do say that the activity picks up. So they do. So something else they do that's kind of interesting, but I think it's also kind of crap, is they examine the minute of the raid, the playback of the raid, and they use AI to analyze the video and audio and how much activity is going on to determine how exciting this is, or is it all humdrum? And they see that there's a lot of activity in a just chatting stream, as you'd expect, but they see no increased activity in gaming streams. And that's where I find this hilarious. We then conducted the t-test comparing the video intensity and word count before and after the raids. For gaming streams, we find no significant differences in intensity after raids. This supports our assumption that gaming streamers remain unaware or unable to react to raids. Are you shitting me? They are they are. So I don't know which channels they're looking at, but they're looking at channels that don't pay attention to chat anyway. So for one thing, if we're talking about viewer engagements, you're already putting words in chat and you feel like you're being ignored because the streamer doesn't look at chat. And then in comes a raid, and they know it's a raid. They know what messages relate to raid. What up? Hello, Roansome. They know what nothing. You're not posting clips on Twitch. Anyway, they don't. Hello, Roansome. Welcome in. They're not looking at. So we're talking about streamers that already ignore chat. So the viewers aren't really being seen. They feel like they're not being seen. And then you have a raid. They know it's a raid because they see words like hey, hi, hello, greeting, raid, raider, things like that. That would be raid specific engagement as opposed to your standard engagement. So they're able to separate that from the standard engagement. And they see a decrease in standard engagement when that happens, which makes a bit of sense too, because everybody's talking about the raid because that's what just happened, right? But then they're arguing that it's doesn't help the channel. But here's the thing though, is they're looking at channels that already ignore chat. It's because there's a raid and they don't care. They don't care that there's a raid. They don't notice there's a raid. And so of course a big raid is not going to help your channel if you ignore the raid. That's just goes without saying. Like you've got to take advantage of it to actually make use of it. And this now leads into kind of the personal aspect of it. So in the personal aspect of it, the viewpoint perspective, I've spoken with mutuals who so it's kind of a like how when it comes to growth as a streamer, it's a bit of 50-50. Part of it is luck, part of it is skill. So there are skills as a streamer, being able to take advantage of the activity and seize the opportunity and to pull in new viewers, more and more viewers, find more people who want to stop in and stick around and visit on a regular basis. To be able to take advantage of that is skill. That is skill. Now, you could definitely make the argument of there's a lot of luck involved. There absolutely is a lot of luck involved as well, because you can't maintain that viewer. You can't impress. Let me take my glasses off. You can't impress that viewer if you don't have a viewer in the first place. So there's a lot of luck in getting one viewer, a lot of luck in getting that second viewer, that third viewer, that fourth viewer, getting that rate of 10 viewers, getting that rate of 50 viewers. There's a lot of luck involved in that. But do you seize the opportunity? Do you turn those temporary viewers into a more long-term viewer? Do they come back? Do they follow? Do they engage? Do they subscribe? Do they consume your other content? Did you
Did you impress a new viewer? I mean, that's skill. Like there's the luck is the viewer slash raid popping in. The skill is grabbing them, holding on to them, and actually turning it into real growth. And not to name drop because I don't know this individual. You know, I don't know this individual, but those who follow my other content, follow my reaction content, or visit me on my live streams on Tuesdays, I react to Tiny Tuber clips. It's a YouTube channel. They are based off of Blue Sky, and it's compilations of viewer clips. And I've been in a few of the more recent compilations. And Crelly, people who follow VTubers will probably recognize that name. She suddenly popped off big time. I'm in some compilations featured alongside Crelly, amongst a bunch of other tiny VTubers. Now, when you say, hold on, wait, tiny VTubers, Crelly. Yeah, she just popped off recently off of, guess what? A big raid. Vettel raided her, and she popped off big time. She went from grinding it out as a partner level streamer, and and out of curiosity, I was looking back at some of the history of because you can look this up on Twitch data, stuff like that. And she was grinding in that 70 viewer range. Vettel rated her, and then suddenly you see 500 viewers, 1,000 viewers. She's rubbing elbows with big names, Megalodon, Camellia, all these big names, some bigger names. Suddenly she's rubbing elbows with them, all because of a Vettel raid. Now, here's the thing, and here's the point that I'm getting at. That's the whole 50-50 skill versus luck, because she grinded for years. She grinded for years before getting that big raid, and really popped off after that. And it's a question of how do you seize the moment? Do you seize the opportunity? If she didn't have the capability, if she was not capable of grabbing and holding on to a large swarm of new viewers, if she was not ready, she would not have popped off. That's the reality of it. She popped off because she was ready. She has the skill, very talented streamer. All she needed was the opportunity. But if you don't have the ability to hold on to it, then the opportunity will pass you by. That's just the reality of it. Something I neglected to mention, I've seen people arguing against raids before. So this time I was seeing an argument that receiving raids are harmful. And I've seen people argue in the past. A few months ago, I saw people arguing that raiding was harmful. So basically, everybody's harmed by the whole thing. There was people arguing that when you raid, what you're doing is showing your viewers that there are other streamers out there. And then they go, oh, this new streamer, this other streamer is so much better. I'm going to go visit them instead. And so supposedly there's some successful streamers who say, oh, never raid out. You're just giving your viewers away and they never come back. To which I say, that's kind of you're just kind of telling on yourself there. Just kind of telling on yourself. Basically, you're showing them, hey, there's people better than me.